Political drama unfolding in Wisconsin. Republicans, after the loss of Governor Scott Walker, accused of a legislative coup, voting on bills to limit the powers of the incoming Democratic governor, Tony Evers, and the incoming Democratic attorney general. One proposal would restrict the governor's ability to enact laws. Another measure would weaken the attorney general's office.
An unprecedented act by the Republican legislature, something that's never been done before in our state's history.
But Republicans on defense say their goal is to establish a balance of power.
I would support what we're doing here today as a way to equalize that authority and bring us together.
And there's also uncertainty in North Carolina, where the State Board of Elections has decided not to certify the 9th congressional district results between Republican Mark Harris and Democrat Dan McCready. At issue, allegations of election fraud at the hands of a Republican political operative who has a felony record and a history of financial fraud. Investigators now looking into whether he or an operation he ran manipulated absentee ballots after the state recorded an unusually high number of unreturned absentee ballots.
Whether you end up having a party that's trying to put limits on the incoming governor, or you have a situation where there might be election fraud, this is an incredibly messy situation.
All underscoring the bitter partisan divide still on display 1 month after the midterms. Kristen Welker, NBC News, Washington.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.